I think overall immigration is an issue that clearly does damage to Harris. Well, she can say that they tried, but it's also fair what the moderator said. Why did you wait 3.5 years to, to do something about it? Now, the specific story about the pets, people eating pets, I think was not the most effective way for Donald Trump to hammer her on the border. And I think the moderators were helping her in that sense on that instance. Generally, I think they did a good job, but in that instance, they clearly helped her by pointing out there was actually no real basis for his claim.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats, they're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame.
You talk about extreme.
I would agree generally with the pundits that Kamala Harris had a good night. I think that Donald Trump started out strong, playing offense, scoring points on the two major issues, the economy and immigration, where I think he did real damage to Harris. But it sort of changed after the first 30 minutes. And I think he did take the bite from Kamala Harris, and overall she was able to really score some important points as well. So I agree. I think probably not a devastating blow to Trump, but a win for Kamala Harris.
Wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please.
Especially at the beginning of the debate, right? The very first question, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And she actually dodged the question because probably the true answer is that many Americans don't feel all that much better off. Rightfully or not, but that put aside, I think that's why she dodged the question. Now, again, I think he did damage during the first 30 minutes. After that, I think his temperament got into the way, and he started with all his grievances about the election, about January 6th. I mean, I'm sure his advisors told him not to do that. Stay on the economy and talk about the future. I think elections are foremost about the future. And I mean, also an important part here let's remember, debates are extremely important. Why? Because it's the only opportunity for voters to see the candidates next to each other, right? I mean, you see ads, you hear one, you hear the other, you hear them through the media, and it's the only point, actually, the first time that they really met, right? So it's a crucial moment in that sense, and the non-verbal is very important. And I think that she had some strong moments there in the non-verbal by the way she was looking at him and sort of saying do you really think that's the future? I mean, he didn't look like the future. In his case, right, you need a strategy and you need a narrative and you need you have to take every question to drive home that point and that narrative and that strategy. He was basically just answering questions. It was about everything under the sky and the moon. And I think the narrative probably should be something like she's out of the mainstream. And then use every question to drive home that point. He made that point, but he made 15 other points against her. And I don't think that's how effective drawing lines of distinction really works. I think she did lay traps and he stepped right into them. I agree with that part. I also think, though, that he had a pretty good first 30 minutes. I mean, he is sort of a bulldozer and obviously had much more practice doing debates than she does. And you can practice in a hotel room, and I think it's good if you do. You have to take it serious and prepare. But once you're there, that's a different story because it's probably her biggest audience. She had much more risk than he did because she's more undefined in terms of public opinion. So once you're there, preparation helps, but it's a different thing. And you're really alone. You stand there for 90 minutes. You can't talk to anybody, to a close family or an advisor. You're there on your own. So I think overall, she handled it pretty well, despite him having actually done this 6-7 times more than she did in the recent years.
For the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Do you know, the interesting thing about what Kamala didn't do well, a lot of people have praised the fact that she looked at Trump, you know, sort of amusedly, almost condescendingly. Looking at her on screen, I didn't like that. I mean, I thought, you know, like I said, a lot of what Trump said was ridiculous. And you might raise an eyebrow, but I thought Kamala was almost rude to Trump in that. I mean, Trump is rude, let's not get away from that. It's the hands, but also the sort of strange smile that she had on her face, you know, like of, you're an idiot, I think you're an idiot, that sort of smile. And kind of like, I'm dealing with a 5-year-old. It was the look of a mother who, you know, had seen her toddler do something ridiculous. You know, we didn't learn that much about Kamala Harris's policy platform. We saw some broad outlines being sketched. We know, you know, that there are certain positions that Trump's taken that she opposes, particularly on, you know, women's rights, for example, in terms of reproductive rights. But we don't know much about what a Kamala Harris administration will actually do. And I suspect what she is doing, quite obviously, is trying to adopt Keir Starmer's Ming Vase strategy, which, if you recall, was to try and say as little as possible about your own platform, carry that Ming Vase across the room without it breaking about your own policy, people going, "Ooh, what's that? We don't like that." And instead trying to focus everything on your opponent. That's the strategy she's clearly adopting. It's a strategy, you know, where she allows Trump to go and hang himself. And of course, he's helping in that strategy by taking the bait. I don't know if her performance will have convinced people to go out and vote for her per se. I do think she probably got the better of Trump in the exchanges, in the sense of she got him onto the personal territory. And as such, it reminds Americans of Trump's foibles and the way that he, you know, can easily be distracted. And whether they do want another 4 years of that is going to be interesting. Whether, though, they come out of the conclusion of that, you know, sort of debate and go, actually, I'm positively inspired by Kamala Harris, is another matter. Now, clearly, Taylor Swift was, but to be fair, Taylor Swift backed the administration 4 years ago, so it was a little surprise that she was going to do that.